Listen, man, no one's gonna tell you this, but I will. The moment you stop texting her, everything changes. Not just in the dynamic between you and her, but in the one that matters most, the relationship between you and yourself. We live in a world that constantly pulls your attention outward, toward her replies, her silence, her validation. You keep checking your phone, not because you need to, but because your nervous system is addicted to her presence, or worse, to her absence. Every man's been there. You say you're being patient, but your mind's racing. You say it doesn't bother you, but you're distracted. You say you're over her, but you're still holding your breath every time your screen lights up. And that, right there, is the leash. Because the more you chase her energy, the more you abandon your own. And a man without inner gravity will always orbit someone else's world. That's where we begin. Now, let's start with something most men don't realize until it's already too late. The trap you never saw coming. You thought texting her meant connection. That if you stayed consistent, stayed nice, stayed available, she'd appreciate it. You believed that showing her attention was the way to win her affection. But what you didn't see is that it wasn't the texts that made her lose interest. It was what those texts represented. Neediness disguised as consistency. Insecurity dressed up as effort. A man seeking closeness, not from grounded strength, but from emotional hunger. Women feel that, deeply and silently. She doesn't need to read a psychology book to know when a man's chasing her because he has no inner anchor. She feels it in her body, in her nervous system, in the space between your messages. The more you text to keep her, the more she slips through your fingers, because she doesn't want to be the center of your life. She wants to orbit a man who already has one. Let that sink in. Now that we've uncovered the trap, let's look at the moment everything shifts. When silence speaks louder than words. When you stop texting her, not to manipulate, but because you've reconnected with yourself, everything changes. You stop reacting, you stop waiting, you stop needing, and for the first time, she feels it. Your silence becomes a mirror, not just for her, but for you. It shows you who you are without her energy, without the constant emotional stimulation, without the highs and lows. At first it's uncomfortable. That's withdrawal. You're breaking an addiction, but sit with it long enough and something powerful happens. You start hearing your own voice again. You start feeling your own center. You realize that your peace isn't supposed to come from her replies. It's supposed to come from your direction. And in that moment, you stop orbiting. You become the gravity. So, what happens when you finally stop chasing? When you detach emotionally, not with resentment, but with clarity, your entire presence changes. You're no longer texting from fear. You're no longer reaching out from a place of lack. You're not trying to fill a void. You're full, and that fullness is rare. Most men are loud, impulsive, attention-seeking, but a man who can sit with himself, who can choose silence over begging, who can walk away without bitterness, that man becomes unforgettable because he's no longer broadcasting insecurity. He's radiating calm strength, and whether she understands it or not, she feels it. And that's when the shift happens. She texts again. She watches your stories. She lingers in your world. But the man you've become no longer needs it. Now let's talk about that man. The man who doesn't flinch. He doesn't flinch when she pulls away. He doesn't crumble when she leaves him on red. He doesn't spiral when she says she needs space, because he knows nothing real can be lost by silence, and nothing worth having needs to be chased. He's not cold, he's clear. He's not distant, he's grounded. He knows his time, his attention, his energy are sacred, and he treats them that way. That kind of man doesn't beg. He invites, he doesn't prove. He embodies, and if she can't feel the value in that, he lets her go, because he knows the truth. The more you abandon yourself to keep her, the more you lose the very thing she was drawn to in the first place. That's your silence. Not the empty kind, but the powerful kind. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are, even when no one's looking. So next time you're tempted to text her just to feel seen, remember this. The man who can hold his silence holds the world. If this struck a chord deep inside, listen closely and hold on to this truth. It's never been about winning her back. It's about winning yourself back. You've been handing over pieces of yourself, your time, your energy, your peace, without realizing it, hoping for a glimpse of her attention, a sign of her care, but the cost was higher than you thought. This path isn't one of regret or bitterness. It's not about trying to fix what's broken or chase what's already lost. It's about reclaiming what was always yours, your sense of worth, your calm strength, your freedom. So when that familiar urge rises to break the silence, to send that next text, to fill the emptiness, stop, breathe, ask yourself, am I doing this for her or for me? Because the man you're becoming isn't defined by her responses or by the noise of her presence. He's defined by the quiet power he holds inside, the steady light he carries even when no one's watching. This is not a game. This is transformation. This is your rebirth. If you're ready to keep walking this path, to keep reclaiming your power and your peace, not for her, but for yourself, then subscribe. Not for me. For the man who's learning to stand alone, who's learning to stand tall, who's learning to be enough, all on his own.